Coming up in this video, I'm going to show you how I speed paint some survivors for the zombie apocalypse. How's it going, guys? It's Jarrett. Welcome to Mini Junkie. Welcome back. So I'm going to be painting some survivors for this new zombie game that has come out recently, you may have heard of, called Last Days Zombie Apocalypse, and it is by Ash Barker of Guerrilla miniature games fame. Hopefully I'm getting all these names right. It's really cool. I'm gonna have to put a picture up on screen because I don't have the physical book. I bought the digital version, but I really like it. I've been reading it, and it's a nice simple rule set that still allows for really great interaction. It has alternating activations, thank God. A lot of great interaction on the board between the players and between the zombies, and it has campaign rules and rules for what do you call them, hideouts kind of, or their base. So great rule set. I'm really into it. And to get a group of survivors together, you kind of just use whatever zombie / survivor type miniatures you have lying around, or that you buy from wherever, Hassle Free or Heresy Miniatures, or even Zombicide. I'm going to be using Mantic's Walking Dead All Out War miniatures, which, you know, you wouldn't often hear someone say they're going to use Mantic figures over other ones, because Mantic hasn't had the greatest history in terms of miniature quality. Not all, some of it's good. But yeah, so I'm using stuff from this game, figures from this game, which I actually kickstarted a long time ago when it first came out. And yeah, it's dusty. I really like the aesthetic of these models. I've never actually played the game itself, which is weird, but I love the models because they have this weird sort of stocky, cartoony proportions. They're nice and cleanly sculpted, though. They have good detail, a lot of character, and that includes the zombies. And I just think that they will pop off the table nicely versus the smaller Zombicide models, or I don't know, there's other models that are probably great, but these are the ones I think are best. So, and another thing is I don't want to spend a ton of time on these. It's just the way it is. I don't have a lot of time. As you've noticed, a lot of my videos these days are speed painting videos. I want to get these table ready really quickly and just start playing with them with my son, something like that. Especially the zombies, I don't want to spend a lot of time on them, but I still want them to look good. And I'm going to show you sort of my thought process and how I went about painting these such that they still look great at table distance. They're not going to win awards, but you can get them done really quite quickly. So yeah, let's get to the paint table and I'll show you what I did. Alright, so that was a long intro. Here's the final result we're going for. Here's just a few examples. The one on the right was the very first one I did, the blonde, and she's not exactly the greatest, but started to improve with the other two. And a sneak peek at a couple of zombies I've done with a similar technique. Quick freeze frame here to explain something. You need to use a light color as your undercoat and as your primer. That could be white, that could be a light gray, or that could be like a beige. But don't do a zenithal type prime where you do light over black, and don't do a black primer, because this whole idea of this method is tinting the white underneath, and that's what creates the bright popping effect of the color, and that's what creates a nice contrast and lets you experiment with colors. So Vallejo ink makes a skin wash, but I've actually found the brown works almost perfectly. It's kind of crazy. You just paint it over white primer, and it really looks like a good flesh tone with some shading. And for example, the Vallejo skin wash is too orange and streaky and just honestly doesn't work very well. But the brown works so well, I'm actually inclined to use it on other speed painting. I'm going to be doing things like if I'm speed painting a unit of human type characters for, let's say, Star Wars Rebellion or something like that. In any case, it just works really nicely if you're in a hurry and you need to do a whole bunch of troops. But if you're not sold or you're not sure, you could always take some and just test it out on a very small area like the hands or something like that. And I mean, it's such a subtle thing that if you don't like it, you can easily cover it up or paint over it or whatever. Here I'm applying it to the bald-headed survivor, the male, and the trick with this ink is it will dry relatively quickly, and it's very unforgiving in terms of if you go back over another layer, you're going to start to see tide marks and overlap marks and things like that. So you pretty much need to work quickly with it and apply it all over the area you want fairly quickly. Mop up any, I don't know what the heck I thought I was doing there. That's too much of a highlight. But mop up any, extra pooling you're seeing and things like that. And so you just have to move quick. But if you get a nice even coat with a little bit of extra shading in some of the recesses and whatnot, I think you're going to be quite happy once it's dried and you see the final effect. Now I'm going to paint the female's holster vest thing with black, and black ink is quite strong, but over white you're still probably going to need 2 coats if you want it to be quite dark and opaque looking, or you can leave it lighter, maybe it's dark gray, whatever, but you know, just do it to your taste. I also decided to give the guy black boots, and you'll notice I'm very sloppy when it comes to the boots on any of these models. It's because when it's all finished and I'm done painting and matte varnishing, I go back and I apply the base material after that so I can cover up all of the mess that I've made with the inks on the base itself. I decided a lot of people in the zombie apocalypse would wear blue jeans, and I was trying to think of what kind of a glaze could I use for that. And I'm using Vallejo wash blue gray here, and right away you can see it's just too light. It's not tinting the white underneath enough. It's creating some nice shadows for sure, but the effect was lighter than I wanted. And yeah, I could probably go back over after this dried with another coat, but I was feeling impatient, so I was going to get this to dry and then try something a little different. So what I decided to do is take just a tiny drop of Vallejo Game Ink Blue and add it to that blue-gray wash. And I'm talking barely a drop, if not less than a drop. And because the inks are very, very strong, right? So by mixing in, you can see how it's added just enough blue to this that it's creating a little more of a glaze effect. It still keeps that sort of faded jeans color that I was going for. And I was really quite happy with it. I liked it enough that I decided to give this farmer looking dude a denim shirt. So I just basically used the same wash, and I think I probably ended up doing 2 coats of this, letting it dry between. And that's what you want to do. Like, really, I'm doing 2 survivors, but what you could do is essentially prime your whole force or your warband or whatever it is. I forget what they're called. Your group. Let's say you got 5 or 6 guys, prime them all white so that if you find a color is working for you really well, like you're a certain blue, a certain orange, whatever, go across each survivor and see if there's spots where that would work really well so that you're making the most of these mixes you're discovering or these colors you like, and you're speeding up the process even more. And, you know, obviously don't make them all look the same, but, you know, you might be able to find efficiencies that way. I decided to make the female shirt orange, but I often like to undercoat orange when I use this technique with yellow to give it some vibrancy. Cassandora yellow does a really, really good job of that, and in fact pretty much has orange shading kind of built into it. So if I was doing a yellow shirt, this would be it. I would probably just do 1, maybe 2 coats of this and call it good. But eventually I'm going to take an extra step and make it orange. Start experimenting, going through my grab bag of inks and washes. This is Vallejo wash dark brown. I wanted this guy to have brown pants, but what you'll see is, you know, it's doing an okay job of tinting, but it was ending up lighter than I wanted it to be. And in the end, when it dries, it was more like a tan set of pants, which, you know, so what's the thing to do when you're using this technique is think, okay, this is not what I want for these pants, but I'll remember this next time when I'm doing, let's say, a backpacker saying that this color creates a nice tan effect, and so maybe it would be useful for other types of materials. Also, I decided, okay, I like this light brown for hair. I'm going to use this on the female's hair, and she's got light brown hair. I wanted his pants to be a bit orangey brown, so I added the tiniest dot of this Vallejo skin wash, which is very orange, to that brown wash, and ultimately I was quite pleased with the reddish brown color I got from that, and that ended up being the pants I went with for this guy. Right now, Fugan Orange is my go-to for this technique when it comes to tinting things orange. It does a really good job of tinting the color underneath, even though it's meant to be a wash and a shade. One thing you'll see is I'm almost always painting directly from the pot or from the bottle with these inks, shades, and washes and glazes, and I very rarely will thin them. And the reason is simple. This technique is all about tinting, shading or tinting the white color underneath it. And so if you dilute it or water it down, it's just going to do that less effectively. So most of the time with this technique, I'm not trying to do a wash. It's kind of like a filter, right? It's kind of like coloring a coloring book. I don't know. I'm going to have to think of all different terms and metaphors for this, but I think you get the idea. Blink and you miss it, but this is next steps using Agrax Earth Shade, not the gloss, just the regular. And what I wanted to do is I wanted her to have basically white running shoes on, but I wasn't sure how to wash the white and keep it white and pull out some details. So I decided that by just washing this right over, and you could also use a known oil if you want, right over the white, it creates like a dirty running shoe effect so that they still are effectively white shoes, but they've seen a lot of action running from zombies, and so now they're a little dirtier. Along similar lines, I wanted the old man to have grayish hair, not overly white, not black, so I just took some Nuln oil and washed it right over his white, the hair that I've left white, and it worked out really nice. Just created sort of shaded gray hair. Something I figured out in past videos, I think with the Rebel Troops, is that the sepia ink from Vallejo is quite of a dark brown, almost like a walnut. Quite of a dark brown, geez. So I used this color on the dark stock and wood of the shotgun, and I believe I decided to use it also on like belts and a couple other spots where dark brown seemed appropriate. At this point, I applied a matte varnish with my airbrush. When it comes to this technique, you pretty much want to matte varnish the whole thing because of the, shiny effect you're going to get from inks and washes and things like that. And that creates, it doesn't look good, period. So you want them to be matte finished all over. This is the product I used for my basing, Vallejo Dark Earth Paste. I mentioned earlier in the video that this is going to cover up, pretty much any basing material you use is going to cover up stains and ink pooling and things like that are going to result around the base from painting the feet. This goes over whatever color you've got on the base, even white, so it's nice. It does dry slowly, so you're going to have to wait probably a few hours before you can come back and do some dry brushing on it. What I do when it's dry is I give it a heavy dry brush of XV88 base color from GW, and then when that's dry, I give it a lighter dry brush using Carax Stone, which is also GW. While it was drying, I grabbed some gunmetal color. You can use, the one thing I can't speed paint with glazes and inks is metallics. Those pretty much I just have to hand paint. Can't think of any other way to do it. But I grabbed some, you can grab anything like lead belch or something like that, and I just painted on. I was lazy and I don't think I even gave this any kind of wash or highlight. I'm just going for nitty gritty, playable tabletop look. And here they are, all completed. I added some tufts to the base to give it a little bit of visual interest. You can see they're sharing the spotlight here with a couple of zombies that I painted with very similar techniques. I actually have a video filmed of the zombie process, which I'll try to edit and post up pretty soon. So that should get you out into the zombie apocalypse pretty quickly. Be careful out there. Consider sharing with your fellow survivors if you found this fun and useful and interesting and a good technique to use to speed paint and get out on the table quickly. Consider subscribing and following me on social media. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.